It has finally arrived. Sound of Freedom, the movie. It's now hit cinemas and theatres all over the UK, and I went to see it last night. I needed a bit of time to refresh my mind, to keep the emotions at bay, and then to tell you about it. Don't worry, there won't be any spoiler alerts, but it's a movie that needs to be spoken about. As Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel and all the team have said, the first step to battle this evil is awareness, to raise awareness. And that's exactly my little part here, talking a little bit more about it. So my wife and I went last night to see Sound of Freedom. I've been watching some interviews on YouTube when it first hit the cinemas in America. I saw how there was even a case where people were believing that the cinemas were deliberately trying to get people away from watching it, with fire alarms going off during the theatres, yet people still sat through it, to saying it was sold out, and people are putting up videos showing that there were only 2 people in the entire cinema. Many cancelled events after purchases were made. So many coincidences with this one movie, and it's already been made 5 years ago, and as Jim Caviezel has says, they have came across every roadblock trying to prevent it from hitting Hollywood and for the people to be made aware of the evil that's going on. That evil, of course, is not only slavery, but it's also mainly made up of children and the sex trafficking world. That's the real modern day slavery today. When we arrived at the cinema, actually, for all the times I've been in the cinema, I don't recall anyone still being cordoned off and people were waiting outside. The movie was getting screened at 4:25, and we were there. This was now 4:30. It was still cordoned off, and I'm like, uh-oh, is it going to be like one of those ones in America already? Phone at the ready to video it. But it's just the cleaners coming out, obviously falling behind schedule. And then when we are and sitting down, it must have been at least 15 minutes before the screen actually started playing, and I noticed 2 people coming in with high vis on and having a look about, and again I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen. But luckily everything went according to plan and we watched the movie. There was actually a special message after the credits, so if you're going to go and see the movie, make sure you stay until after the credits, as Jim Caviezel gives a direct message to you, the viewer, all about the movie and how to raise awareness and such. It was brilliant to stay for, so make sure you stay after the credits for that special message. Many people left while the credits were coming up, and it even says at the bottom corner, special message in like 2 minutes, and it counts down the clock, so stay for it. It's definitely a movie that hit the emotions, from anger and disgust because of the child trafficking sense of it, to the emotions. I heard a lot of blown noses and snortery tears all over the cinema at certain parts, and I finally broke myself a little bit towards the end. The last few minutes, like I say, it won't be a spoiler alert, but the good ending had a couple of tears going down the cheeks, and I was fighting hard not to cry. When it was coming out and even speaking a little bit about it to my wife as we were walking out to the car, I even had to stop talking about a couple of things that came up because I took the breath. You don't see anything terrible in terms of the nature of the movie, the child abuse or anything like that, but they do it cleverly where you can actually know that when he's looking at the computer to play the scenes as evidence against the paedophiles and stuff, how the real Tim Ballard and anyone can do that, I do not know. But I like the part when one of his interviews in real life a couple of months ago, he says that the reason he was recruited into that role to begin with was because he was a man of faith, and his recruiter says you need your faith for this type of job that you're going to be doing because you will see the evil, and true enough, you can sense it. And what really disturbed me the most, not just about certain parts of the storyline, but what really hit me the most is how men and women have absolutely no conscience, no disturbance, no battle of their conscience of what they're doing. It's absolute pure evil. And they don't seem to have any thought for the child, obviously. No thought for the parents going manic with fear and worry and everything else that would come with the loss of a child. No closure to know if they're alive or dead, and the worst fears of being kidnapped and what they'd be traded for and used for. But it was really hard hitting. It really was. I sensed even before the movie came to the UK that I had a sense, that warrior inside you, the man, the fighter, everything else that's there in a good way. You want to stand up for what's real. You want to stand up for justice. You want to stand up for faith. You want to stand up for truth, for family. Stand up for the children. And any goodness that stands up against any evil is always worthy to do. And I really felt a sense of, you know what, sign me up. If I could help in any way with this movie, with the real life Tim Ballard and all the people that are fighting this evil, sign me up. Sign me up. That's what it felt. That's what it felt like. What could be more worthy than freeing children from sex slavery? But you definitely have to go and see it. And what's amazing is the fact that it's breaking records with the box office. When Hollywood are trying everything to squash it, the people are still going. And that's what we need to believe in, because it's real. It's the people power. The majority are good, the minority are evil. And the majority will always win if we just stand up. And it's like the old saying goes from World War II, I forget the name of the man that said it, but it's a famous quote. All it takes for evil to spread is for good men to sit down and stand back and do nothing. They have to take the action. And I hope after this movie there's going to be a sense of awareness, as it should be, but also you need action. What are we going to do after the movie? We'll go back to work, we'll talk about it to our colleagues, we'll talk about it to our family, we'll tag ourselves at the cinema, on Facebook, all great awareness, but then what? And if Tim Ballard or Jim Caviezel ever comes across this video and you've got a job offer, I just may take it. Because it's a very, very worthy cause indeed. Don't think I could watch the videos, I don't think I could do all that stuff. But I would definitely be one of those ones like the police officers when they raided the island. And of course when you see an island full of young girls and boys and the sex traffickers, of course you think of Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates and Prince Andrew and everyone else in between. And this is just a drop in the ocean of the majority that's still going on. But some people say they can't prove that God exists, for example. You need to see God. No one would believe, no normal person in the world, average person, would believe that this could actually be going on. And the movie is a true story showing you the fact that this is real. This isn't just the case when we remember when we're young, don't talk to strangers. This is brazen child kidnappings happening every day, all around the world. It's organised crime and how some of it's done. Some it's opportunists as well. It even shows you in the movie like some security camera real life footage of how people just walk up and try and snatch kids away from their parents on the street. I remember an old friend from maybe 5 years ago or so. She, her husband and her 1-year-old were on a cruise, and they landed somewhere over in Europe somewhere, and they befriended another family who had a little one as well. And as cruises do, they dock off at the port and they've got half a day to go and explore. They found a local swing park nearby and they were in there with the kids, and they noticed the car circling around 3 or 4 times, looking at them, a couple of men in it, to the point they felt uncomfortable that they had to go back to the ship. And near the ship at the port, as they saw with quite a few ports along the way, it was just plastered on the boards with missing children. Every one of them, every drop, every port, every country, just missing children. And now, 5 years later, we're seeing this movie, and it's the Hollywood elites that are trying to take it away, and I wonder why. And it's all these big tech firms and everything else that are all the little minority people bringing out evil, where it's through this, through the war, through planned wildfires, through anything else that people are talking about just now. And it's a case of like, people need to wake up. Let's get aware. Let's take on the challenge. Because these people in powers, especially governments, are there to serve. They're there to serve. And that seems to be getting less and less all the time. At the end of the movie, they give a few facts popping up. And what stood out for me is the fact that there are more people in slavery today than there were during the time when slavery was legal. And most of these so-called slaves today are children, going through the sex trafficking, child trafficking. Another thing that made me think that when we see all the Black Lives Matters rising up when they have to, and all that was going on during the pandemic and everything else, and why everyone is white now, this race war is still going on, and going back to history of the slavery and stuff like that. We get one narrative one way, and it's like no one is alive to even apologise. No one is alive to even remember of what happened those centuries ago. And for the first law to come in with every nation in the world through the United Nations was the abolition of slavery. But now it's got a new face. The same evil with a new face, a new name. Sex trafficking, people smuggling. It's slavery. And what again gets to me is the so-called land of the free, the land of opportunity. America the Great is the biggest consumer of sex trafficking, child trafficking. And the drug cartel, which is bigger than the arms trade, the drugs are taking in over $150 billion per year, and the child sex trafficking is about to surpass that. What does that say? So please go and watch the movie, raise the awareness, spread it everywhere on social media, and let's start taking on this evil together, one way or another. Let's do our part.